Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome to Cafe Scientifique, Silicon Valley at SRI, and I am Marty Ritchie from here at SRI. I work in our corporate communications group, and I produce our cafe events. I'd like to welcome our newcomers tonight, as well as our many regulars. Cafe events, as you may know, are archived on SRI's YouTube channel, and the URL is listed on the bookmarks that you saw when you signed in, if you want to grab one on your way out. A little housekeeping. We hope you can join us again on June 10th when Dr. Mark Zoback from Stanford will discuss if hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, could provide a bridge to a green energy future. So I hope you come back for that on June 10th. So tonight we are pleased to welcome Dr. Sven Beiker, Executive Director of CARS, which is the Center for Automotive Research at Stanford. CARS is a partnership between academia and industry to address the challenges of personal mobility in the 21st century. Before coming to Stanford, Dr. Beiker worked at the BMW Group for 13 years. This is good history there. We'll hear tonight from Dr. Beiker on a topic for which most of us can relate, the automobile. Dramatic changes are coming to this machine in which we spend so much of our time. Dr. Beiker will take your questions at the conclusion of his talk. We ask you to come to the microphones that will be set up in the back of the room so we can hear you and so we can capture you on the video that we'll be producing. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sven Beiker to the program. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Well, good evening, everyone. And Marty, thanks a lot for the introduction and for the invitation to discuss with you tonight a topic that is very dear to my heart, which is the future of automobiles, but even more so, our own personal mobility. And basically what I want to do is take a relatively broad look at the topic, which is looking at automated vehicles, electric vehicles, connected vehicles, shared vehicles, because I profoundly think that we need to look at all these topics together. I'm sure that many of you have heard, have seen, maybe own already an electric vehicle, which is great. I'm sure that many of you have heard, have maybe seen, maybe have been in an automated vehicle, and I'm sure that maybe some of you maybe subscribe to a car-sharing program and so on. And I really want to discuss a little bit more each of these topics by itself, and then also look at the connections between these topics. Now, one thing I won't do, I won't do a whole lot of forecasting. So I don't really want to say what is happening when and what is really the timeline that is going to unfold. I much more really want to present where we are at right now and what are the challenges ahead of us, and therefore maybe also discuss maybe what are potential activities that we should initiate. Now, Marty told you already a little bit about my background, and those of you who are maybe a little bit more into visual depictions, this is the continent I'm from, this is the country I'm from. You might or might not agree it's not a bad country for an automotive engineer. I grew up in the very north, went to engineering school somewhat in the middle, and started with BMW in chassis control development, and then did a little bit more of innovation management. And the following animation is not really to scale. United States is much bigger than Germany, but I got transferred here about 11 years ago, just a little bit down the road actually, when BMW had its technology office on Hamilton Road in Palo Alto. Oops. Right, Microsoft error reporting. Let's see what we do with this. It is a Mac, those of you who are wondering. And I got transferred to this BMW technology office in 2003. And I was wondering, what am I going to do as a mechanical engineer in Silicon Valley? And here I am 13 years later and trying to tell you something about the automobile that you don't know already yet. And in the topic automated, electric, and connected, obviously there are already quite a few non-traditional topics in there. Then in 2006, I got transferred again with BMW to Michigan, another pretty good spot to actually work on the automobile. And also, let me tell you this, also to work on the future of the automobile in Detroit, and also to actually get, in the end, fascinated with what is the future of the automobile? And is it just the automobile, or is it so much more? And therefore, I really got very interested in personal mobility, really how do we use our automobiles? When is it fun? When is it maybe a chore? When is it a danger? When is it a pleasure? When is it just a nuisance? When is it a solution? When is it a problem? And I actually got the freedom to do this here at Stanford University now as of 2008 when I became the executive director for the Center for Automotive Research, which is what you see here. Really this, what Marty already pointed out, and a program to bring industry and academia together to look at the future of the automobile, but in slightly broader terms, and we'll have this on the next slide, the future of personal mobility. You see a list of the companies here that are working officially with us. Officially means we have really official connections with those companies who we interact with on a daily basis. But as you might envision, we maintain also a very nice network here into Silicon Valley that even companies that might not be listed on that chart, we maintain very good connections with. Now, all this talk about automobile mobility, why don't we just talk about cars? And cars not as the acronym for the organization that I work for, but really as the automobile, the shoebox on four wheels. Well, how I want to define this, at least for my work that I do, and hopefully also for the next roughly 60 minutes, I guess, mobility I really see as the mobility device. And most of the time, and I will see this on the next slide, this is the automobile, but also the mobility consumer. So very, very often, it's not just transportation, it's also enjoyment. And to make this very clear, just by showing of hands, how many of you came here tonight with an automobile? Right. I came with a, what's in? Okay. So those of you who came with a car, how many of you really enjoyed it? How many of you enjoyed coming by car? And that actually tells you something, which really is something, yes, maybe that was more the transportation part, but also if you get into the car on the weekend, you really might doing this more for enjoyment, for recreational purposes, going to Santa Cruz, just have a good time. And therefore, what many scholars do in a very great way, looking at transportation, how do we move people around, that is certainly a very important topic. But I'd like to broaden this a little bit more and actually also talk about what the automobile means to all of us as individuals, but also in the society, which obviously has a strong emotional component. Now, looking at personal mobility in general, mobility as such should not just be considered as the automobile. There's obviously public transportation, there's even air travel and so on. And this is a depiction obviously goes back almost 100 years in this country. And you see the different modes of transportation. The big red wedge is light-duty vehicles, LDVs, so that's personally owned automobiles mostly. And then there's a little bit of bus, rail, IC is inner city, rail, urban, domestic air, and international air. And on the vertical, basically what's depicted there, billion PMT is personal miles traveled. So you basically see that us all together in the 250 million vehicles that we have in this country, we travel a combined 3 trillion passenger miles every year. And then you have a little bit of air travel. Air travel obviously is much faster and goes much further. But we can basically say if we talk about personal mobility, we can talk about using the automobile, which is sometimes pleasure, but what we also saw earlier, maybe not for everyone in every drive. Now, what are the problems? And if I were to ask you what are the problems that we have with our automobiles, we will probably come to a consensus relatively soon. It's about safety, it's about consumption, it's about the environment, and it's maybe about congestion and time that we lose. And I just summarized a few numbers here. I'd like to start out also paying tribute for those who are being perished in traffic accidents. That we have about 34,000 people killed in traffic accidents in the United States alone every year. 1.2 million actually worldwide every year. But even 34,000 every year. That actually means 90 people that are alive now will not be alive tomorrow at the same time because they die in a traffic accident. And very often, human error is at least a contributing factor. 95% of those accidents, at least a contributing factor. That does not mean that every accident then is basically due to human error, but still humans don't really act or react as good as they could or should to avoid an accident. Pollution, you can come up with many, many numbers. I basically post here the emissions from motor vehicle operations, total in the order of $40 to $60 billion a year in healthcare damages or in health damages. Consumption, we burn a lot of fuel just in the light-duty vehicles. 9% of the global petroleum production goes through injection systems in our personally owned light-duty vehicles in this country. And congestion, it's estimated that every commuter loses about almost one entire work week, 36 hours every year, because traffic is not as good as it could be. The entire commute is much longer. It's about 100, 120 hours every year that we commute in our vehicles to and from work. But much of this we lose actually because there are too many of us, too many vehicles, actually too many vehicles where there's just one person in the car. And also in inner city traffic, it's estimated about 30% of the inner city traffic is basically just people trying to get rid of their car. So you can look at these numbers however you want, but it basically is that you can ask the question, what was supposed to be one of the biggest time savers, that you get just faster to your destination, has maybe become the most expensive waste of time because we are stuck in our vehicles and cannot really move. And believe me, I really like automobiles. I like working on them. I like using it every once in a while. But we also have to be more reasonable, I think, how we use them. And we can look at what are the opportunities that lend themselves to finding solutions regarding those challenges. And therefore, I want to talk to you a little bit more about electrification, about automation, about communication, and about what I call for now integration, which is really how does the automobile maybe integrate into a more holistic transportation system.